My name is Natalie. I'm from London. My daughter at that particular time had a drug addiction, which I'm very proud to say she's no longer involved with. But at that time, it was a case that I received a phone call asking me to take care of him, which I chose not to because obviously it was her responsibility at the time. I took him over when he was 2.5, going on 3. I found it difficult, but at the same time, I wanted to have that impact on her, so she felt as though it was her responsibility and there was no one else, in order for her to sort herself out, as opposed. Then social services got in contact with me and obviously explained the situation, and I told them the reason why and what have you. Then it was a couple months after they said that I could go and visit him, but it would be at a contact centre. He was originally supposed to live with his grandfather, but owing to complications in their situation, the social worker asked me whether or not I'd step forward, and I did, owing to the fact that I didn't want him to be put into care at all. He was to remain within the family unit at all times. I was in a part-time work, but on a full-time basis. It's a very strenuous job where I had to hit targets and what have you. So obviously with the stress of having to take him on, I had to give the job up. My work situation changed, my home situation changed, my relationships with people changed because of the impact of having to take him on. Right, at the time my other child was 12, but she's a lovely little girl. She's very understanding and what have you. So if it did have any implications on her, she didn't actually demonstrate them at that particular time. My relationship with my mother and my sisters tend to sort of falter because of the stress and strains that I was going through. And at that particular time, I didn't think that they understood what I was going through. My partner at the time thought he was being supportive, but in actual fact, he wasn't. So it adds a lot of stress and strains to relationships when you have to take someone in that you didn't necessarily visualised you being in that position. So I went onto the internet, typed in grandparents, and Grandparents Association came up, which was brilliant for me. I then contacted them, spoke to Diana Leary. Diana told me what I could and couldn't do, and they'd send me out the information pack. And from there I set up my own support group. Initially I started off being a voluntary worker, and now I work for the Grandparents Association on a full-time but yet still part-time position as a project development officer, and I love my job very much. By me taking on my grandson, I lost £500 a month, which was awful because obviously by that time I'd already acquired a certain lifestyle, and it was just me and my daughter, which I'd died for years, looked forward to this for years. And then all of a sudden, instead of making progression, it was a regression in my life. I think that despite how hard it is, you may have found that you have to take this grandchild on. Being a grandparent is a blessing because for a lot of us, the majority of us that aren't even given the opportunity to see our children grow up. So we should really just embrace this as best as we possibly can. Not a lot of people have that opportunity, and the majority of us have 4 generations in the family. That's a big thing now at this particular stage.